Hello and welcome to the Friday Fresh podcast. I'm your host, Nali Wafula, and today I have a guest, Sandra Ochola, and she's an author, lawyer, founder, and has worked in government in Kenya and was also voted one of the 100 most influential young Africans of 2018. Sandra Ochola is also the author of A Teen's Guide to the Kenyan Constitution. So Sandra, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, Sandra Ochola, as you've rightly mentioned, I'm a lawyer, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, I'm a two-time author and the founder of Teendom Africa. One of my books is The Teen's Guide to the Constitution of Kenya, and I hope those listening, at least you managed to get a copy. It's a simplified version of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. It's intended for teenagers, but a lot of adult teenagers are using it as well. And it's intended to guide and help its readers to navigate through the Constitution, the legalese and the technicalities within the main Constitution, and just to help them understand what the Constitution provides and how they can be active citizens within their communities.
Thank you. So you can tell us a bit about your upbringing and what influenced you to be who you are today. Like, what's one thing you can remember that influenced you to follow this path that you're on now?
Well, I had a normal childhood, I'd say, very sheltered as well. And I remember my first engagement with issues of the Constitution was in law school. I went to Moi University in Eldoret. I'm hoping I have a number of alumni listening in. Moi University was where I got my first experience with law, and particularly with constitutional law. Believe it or not, my lecturer was the former CS for Interior, Professor Kithure Kindiki, and he was a wonderful lecturer. And I think that's where the seed of a constitution was planted, because I remember I was very interested in the class and I did really well. I never missed a class. I enjoyed the cuts and I passed the exams. And little did I know then that many years later, I'd be writing a book about the Constitution. So I think that was a very good basis for me. So moving from school, finishing law school, I went to the Kenya School of Law, where I got my certification to practice. I was admitted to the bar as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and I moved from that point to joining the civil society space. And we were most of the institutions I worked with during that space were concerned with issues of human rights, democracy, good governance. And it's also during that period that the idea of developing a Teen's Guide to the Constitution came about, because I realized there was a lot of civic education going on, but there was very little conversation that was taking place with the young people. And of course, I also looked back at my history, having grown up as a Nyayo baby or a Nyayo child. I don't know how many of you know that, where we'd drink milk and we'd sing with those
national anthem and praise. Actually, the praise songs. That's what they were. They were praise.
Yes, there were praise songs
to the president.
To the president.
And pledge our loyalty.
Yes, and pledge our loyalty and all these things. So there was a lot of indoctrination during that point. And it's only once I got into the civil society space and began to read and research about my country, that's when you realize the underbelly of some of the issues that we've been dealing with. Political assassinations, you have things like detentions, economy going bad, poor leadership and all these things. So you find that that's why I said sheltered, because it's not just sheltered within the family space, it's sheltered as a child and sheltered by community and society, so that there are things that you do not know that ideally you're supposed to know. And so it's during this period, finding out all this information, that I decided it's important for young people to be informed. It's important for young people to be engaged in national issues, in issues of civic education, so that by the time they're going to vote, by the time they're getting into adulthood and starting out their career, they're well aware of who they are, not only as professionals, but also as citizens and active citizens for that matter. So that was one of my main motivations for coming up with the Teen's Guide to the Constitution and the motivations behind it.
So what was the writing process like? You can take us into that.
Oh, writing is not easy. Writing is not easy at all. It takes a lot of creativity. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. I remember when I first had the idea, it was sometime in 2014. I was at an organization called Katiba Institute, for those of you who've come across the name or have interacted with the institution, under the leadership of renowned scholars, Professor Yash Gai, Professor Jill Gai, and Waikwa Wanyoike. They're the ones who established the institution post the promulgation of the Constitution in 2010. So working in that environment, and I had the idea, and I began developing the manuscript. So that took about 1 year. And remember, like I said, I was working with individuals who were already in that space, in the constitutional space, in the legal space. So you can imagine the hassle that was. And you're just coming into the space yourself, a lot of mentorship, a lot of back and forth. So let's say the whole of 2015 was developing the manuscript, getting it edited, getting it approved. And I remember there's a point I was so discouraged because I developed a script. I think it was about 200 pages or so, and I presented it for review, and it came back marked all red, you know. And you're told, change here, research more on this part, change the language, and I did that. So it's a lot of back and forth, but it's very helpful, especially when now you're doing it with people who know what the sector is all about, who know the experts, makes it very easy for you to come up with something that now you can present to the public. So 2015, I finalized the manuscript about a whole year or two from the time the idea came about. And I launched the first edition of the Teens Guide in 2016, again with the help of my mentors and experts in the field. They're the ones who supported me in launching now the first edition. So between 2016 and say 2021, it was more of marketing, which in retrospect I did not do very well in, because it wasn't my area of expertise. And just talking about the book, getting people to know that the book exists, trying to get schools, trying to get individuals to support the publication of the book, up till now when I decided to update the book, because in between the first edition and the second edition, there are a number of things that had happened. We had the BBI process, we had the Supreme Court, we'd already had a general election, so I felt the first edition needed updating now to what we have, which is the second edition, and which I published and printed out en masse in 2022.
Yeah. So
then between 2022 and 2024, I think it's been received positively. And another feather on the hat is that it got approved by the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development.
Oh, great.
Congratulations. Which was another process altogether, as a resource material for schools. So it's something that can be used in schools as well. Because I remember the period of marketing and making it public. After the first edition, one of the challenges was that it cannot now be used in public schools because it has not been approved by KICD. So that was one of the challenges. So the only place I could use it, the only place I could have conversations about it were in private schools and in churches and all these other places, which of course now the uptake wasn't that much because there wasn't that structure that was backing it. So a lot has happened. I'd say from 2014, when the idea first came out, to date, it's been a good number of years of hard work on the material. Yeah, but really grateful. I think getting it out there and having people reading it now, it's really great.
And has it been well received by parents, teenagers? Yes. What's been the feedback from your readers?
The feedback has been great, because I always say that it's the first of its kind in the country. There hasn't been any other civic education material that focuses on teenagers in particular, that focuses on young people, and one that has been developed in this manner that the Teens Guide to the Constitution has, in the sense that it's colorful, it's age appropriate, it has activities, and it's something that young people can engage with and engage in. And you see, for parents and for the adults, like I said initially, there are majority of people who are also finding it very useful, because you'll agree that most of the civic education material out here, especially those pertaining to the Constitution, they're very legalistic.
And dense.
Yes, and dense and very technical.
Yes.
So while a teenager or a young person can find this wholesome, I often say for the adults that are using the book, you use it as a guide. But then now, given your higher or greater level of comprehension, now use the constitution as well, so that now for you as an adult, when you're using the book, you're getting more information and you're getting more knowledge, not only from the guide, but also from the constitution itself. So the reception has been really nice. If you look at Twitter and all these other social places where I've been placing it in, it's been really good. And where we stock it at Nuria store, many orders, I'd say, so far.
That's good and amazing to hear as well.
Thank you.
And Nuria is in town, so it's in the middle.
Yes, in the middle of town.
In the middle of town. So
it's easy.
yeah,
it's
and they do
accessible.
have a very good online ordering function. So yeah, let's talk about the civic education space. So where do you think we are now as a country when it comes to civic education, and why is it important?
I'd start with why it's important, because then it puts the citizen at the center of all the national and local level processes and procedures, be it in budgeting, be it in development of laws, be it in conversations, be it in governance, all across. Right? So civic education is important, and actually the constitution provides for it and requires that the government, through parliament, develops a law that now will promote civic education. And all these things that we talk about, public participation when they're developing laws or making certain decisions, it's required of them that they engage people, and part of that engagement entails civic education. So perhaps the challenge has been that most of the civic education is taking place or it's being done by particular groups, and in this instance the civil society groups and the NGOs that have been largely left with the mandate, right, to conduct civic education. And yet this is something that should be happening across board and at all levels of government, at all points of the engagement with the public. So there's a bill, I believe, by one of the senators that is now trying to legalize or bring in civic education and make it into a legal, give it a legal framework, so that even at the county level, at whatever level, then civic education becomes very mandatory as you engage with the public. So much has been done, because I believe most of the engagements that we are having now are as a result of civic education. So much has been done, but then a lot more can still be done. And moving forward, then now it's the prerogative of each and everyone to engage in it, not just the civil society, not just government, not just other public officials, but each and everyone who has the capacity and has the willingness to engage in civic education for the betterment of our country and for betterment of our community should engage in civic education.
And how do you see that being taught, especially in schools? Because I don't know if you did 844 growing up.
Yes.
But we had a subject called GHC, which was geography, history, and civics.
Exactly.
And I feel, of course, it was there, but it was I think it wasn't as deep. But it still kind of introduced the subject of civics and what it entails and what this means, the legislature and all that stuff. But now we have CBC, and I'm not sure if they have the same subjects. And also we have a lot of Kenyan parents now looking to other curriculums, so like the British curriculum, or just different curriculums that they're running away from the local curriculum. So how do we now try and bring that back, first in the education sector for the ones doing like the local curriculum, and also for the people who are not necessarily their children are not doing the Kenyan education curriculum?
I hear you. So going back to, again, just emphasizing the fact that civic education has been happening. The challenge is that there are particular groups that for a very long time have been disenfranchised when it comes to civic education. And that is now where young people come in. And that is now the focus of the book and the focus of all these engagements that now we are having with young people. Because as an adult, you already have the constitution itself. You can always go to the websites of all these organizations that exist, and you're able to access the material in one way or the other and read it and at least have some information. But for a young person in school, it becomes very challenging for them first to access, and secondly to understand, and then third to implement whatever information they're going to have. And so that is why programs and materials and resources that now focus on young people, I think it's very timely that we are starting to have these conversations with them in school. And as you've rightly said, during our time it was 844 and we had GHC, and it introduced the same things we are talking about, the loyalty
Yeah.
pledge, and you're told about your country, and you're reading about Vasco da Gama and all this other and all these
And
other
the provinces.
Yes, and the provinces, and that one was okay for that time.
Yeah.
It gave us what it needed to give us, but then it also left out particular information that perhaps could have been useful to majority of us as millennials,
Yeah.
especially now with the conversations that are going in. So now 844 is not there anymore, and now we have CBC. And what I know is that in grade 6 and grade 7, they have now social studies, and part of that talks about the constitution. Constitutional studies. So there's part of it that is being taught in schools already. And that is why now the book comes in very handy as a complementary material or as a resource material for that particular group of people. So it provides that foundation. It gives them the information they need on the constitution as it is. So that is within schools. Outside schools, now you have those who are doing the other systems of governance. And I know there are particular private schools that have law classes. Yeah, I think they have a curriculum of sorts. At least for the schools that I have in mind, they have a curriculum of sorts that now teaches them about the law. But the focus is not necessarily about the constitution, right? So that you still find that outside the school system, there are certain groups that are still disenfranchised. So that is where now the Teens Guide to the Constitution comes about. So that is not just the conversation about the Constitution itself, but now providing them with political education, which has been missing.
Yeah.
Right? So you're taught about social studies, you're taught about GHC and all these other things. You're told how to vote, but nobody talks to you about the politics in the country or political education in particular. Right? So that is where now the book comes in. And what we have tried to do is within the schools and even outside schools is to come up with a program called the Young Citizens Program. So the Young Citizens Program is now going to provide law-related and constitutional information. And the agenda is to unpack the contents of the book, unpack the contents of the Teens Guide in a manner that now engages young people on the issues that impact them.
So it's also going to have activities and different things they can do, workshops and that sort of thing.
Yes.
That's amazing. So you're a parent yourself. Why is it important for parents to have those conversations with their children, especially with what's happening right now with the demonstrations about the finance bill and going forward? There's a lot of questions, young kids now asking you, what are demonstrations? What are protests? Why are people on the streets? Why is it important for parents to have those conversations?
Because then we are nurturing our children into adults who then can be actively engaged within their communities. Remember, I said it's not just being a lawyer, it's not just being a doctor, it's not just being a professional, but it's also contributing to your country or contributing to your community in a more meaningful manner, if I could put it that way. So that as a doctor, you're still concerned and you're still engaged in the day-to-day issues that affect your community. Say for the conversations that we've been having now, you've seen young people from all walks of life getting to the streets and having these conversations across spaces on the bill, on our finances, on our governance structures. So that stems from a place where they have had these conversations amongst themselves. Possibly they've had these conversations at home or in school, and they have been engaged in a manner that now allows them to express themselves like they are currently. Yeah. So it's very important, not just within our home as parents, but also as caregivers and the society at large, to give the young people the information they need so that they are more engaged within their communities and they're positively impacting the societies in which they live in.
Yeah. So today's youth, they've kind of what's happened is people have also been forced to be politically engaged. Because there's this saying, Kenyans like saying, if you say you don't do politics, politics will do you. So what do you think would be a way forward in terms of the current political climate and how we can now push the needle forward in terms of the civic education and making sure that even the laws that we're seeing kind of being enacted reflect our needs as a country, as citizens, as young people, as millennials, Gen Z's, all that.
Yeah. I like what you've started with when you say if you don't do politics, politics will do you, because the perception for the longest time has been that young people are not interested in politics, and majority of them say they haven't been interested in politics. And again, it goes back to the education perspective, because when you are told that politics is ugly, politics is for a particular group, you are not taught the value of politics for you and for your parents and for your home and for your future. That is when you form ideologies like those that tell you that make you think that politics is not important, or it's old, you know. And yet politics cuts across each and every area of our lives. From the moment you wake up, the kind of house you're living in, the kind of school you're going to take your kids to, the kind of courses you're going to take, the transport, everything, the kind of food you eat boils down to politics in one way or the other, because then it affects leadership, it affects governance, it affects resource distribution, and all these other conversations that we are currently having. So it's a good thing with that things are happening the way they are. I think we are exactly where we need to be as a country. We are exactly where we need to be from a generational standpoint. And what needs to be done now is what we call eternal vigilance. Yeah, for those of you who've been hearing that term being thrown about, is eternal vigilance, where it's not just a one-off agenda, it becomes a long-term agenda, where now we are eternally concerned about the welfare of our state. We are eternally concerned about the welfare of our children. We are eternally concerned about the welfare of our economy, and we are engaged. Perhaps what needs to happen now moving forward is, beyond the eternal vigilance, is better organization. And if there are young people listening, I'd say find out which are your areas of interest now and in the future. Say you are in the creative industry, or you're in the medical field, or you're in the sports field. If that is your area of interest, then now, beyond what's happening at the national level, find out what's happening for you within that sector, right? So that now, what are the laws, what are the policies, what are the conversations that are going on, who are the leaders, who are the decision makers, what's going on within that field, and how can you engage in that field in a positive manner? What contribution can you make, right? And if it's about finances, you could say that. If it's about budgeting, be involved, right? Be involved in those spaces so that you're making a positive contribution. You're vigilant, you're making a positive contribution in that area, and you're ensuring that whatever decisions are made, whatever processes, whatever changes are taking place, are changes that benefit that sector, benefit you, and then benefit the next generation of those who will be engaged in it. And then I think that now creates that pyramid. If you can visualize that pyramid, right from an inverted one, rather, right from the small contributions that you make within the sectors that now make a big change, come together, and then make that big change at the national level. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing to think about. And also, of course, we hope that it goes in that direction. You're also the founder of Teendom. Can you tell us a bit about it? Yes.
So now, Teendom is a platform for teenagers, and I say it's a platform for the smart teenagers. And our goal and our aim is to ensure that young people, and especially teenagers, are able to thrive through adolescence, because it's that stage. I often say it's the childhood stage that determines so much of what an individual is going to be in the future. So the aim and our goal is to nurture wholesome individuals that are now going to impact the societies moving forward. And so we provide a platform where young people can have conversations on the issues that affect them, be it in career, be it in health, be it in education. All these things, we bring them together and then now provide them with spaces where their issues can be addressed. And one of the program under Teendom is now the Young Citizens Program, which now engages teenagers and young adults in learning about the law and society, and it helps them to maximize their potential as young citizens. And our main goal now is to promote law-related and constitutional education amongst young people. And we are doing this with both in-school and out-of-school students who are committed to improving their communities, and we engage them through the digital and physical forums. And our program content for the Young Citizens Program is based on teens, law, and society. We teach them about issues of citizenship and personal development. We teach them about leadership and volunteerism, government and public service, because as much as now we are having all these conversations about what the government has done or what the government ought to do, there are a good number of them who will be inducted into the public service in the future. So they need to know what government is, how government operates, and what the public service entails. And then we also teach them about human rights and civic participation. And one thing I like about it is that the program has been curated along the chapters of the Constitution, and again using the Teens Guide to the Constitution as the pivot point. And we have about 20 modules, which then are, you can take them as an online version, or we have also physical versions, or face-to-face engagements, where we also engage the young people. And our aim with the program is that at the end of it, the young people that we engage, they're going to have a better understanding of Kenya's social, political, and cultural history. They're going to have access to industry experts, legal aid and referral services, because like I said, it's not just giving them information, but also providing them with solutions to some of the issues that they're facing. And then we also intend that they have increased knowledge of the Constitution and how the law works generally, and to have a greater sense of purpose and appreciation of their rights, roles, and responsibilities. So for those who are interested in the program, we'd urge you, especially now that the young people are coming back from school for the holidays, I think it would be a very important way of engaging them. Whatever we have can be customized so that young people are able to get as much information as they can, and they can be entertained. You know, they can meet their role models or other industry experts who can impact them. Then you can find more information on this on our website, www.tindom.africa, and specifically at learn.tindom.africa, where you can find our brochure, and you can register, and the registration details, and you can register where if you wish. And you can also reach us through 0742-862080, and we provide you with more details on the program moving forward.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll definitely also, you'll send me the information and I'll put it on the description box, and also share on Instagram and other platforms that we're on.
Awesome.
So I think we've come to the end. So I'd like you to share one key message that you'd like to convey to your readers or listeners. Yeah.
I posted it on my social platforms a couple of days ago, and it's a quote I got from a man called Myron Golden, and he says, "You are created for a particular purpose, to serve a particular group towards a particular end. And God has already equipped you uniquely for that particular purpose. So find it and live it."
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Sandra Ochola. And of course, you can find the Teens Guide to the Constitution of Kenya at Nuria's store. And I'm hoping, she said she's brought one, so I might actually be giving it out to one of our, after I've read it.
Yes.
But I'll be giving it out to one of our lucky listeners, because I think it's such an important book. And I definitely will also be buying more copies, because I do have some nieces and nephews that I think would be very interested in it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Karibu sana. That's it.
Thank you.
So that was an interview with the lovely Sandra Ochola. And make sure that you get your hands on the Teens Guide to the Constitution of Kenya for your children, nieces, nephews, younger brothers or sisters. I think it's such an important book, especially during this time and what's going on in our country. So on to some Friday Fresh news. What are we listening to? Right now, I'm obsessed with the Manda Mano Rhythm by Sabi Wu. Sabi Wu is a Kenyan artist. He's a rapper, he's a singer, and he's very versatile and has a lot of diverse influences to his music. And if you do remember the remix that was done using the Kendrick Lamar beat, he was able to articulate his dissatisfaction with the bill, and his song Reject Your Bill actually went viral, ended up on the Rolling Stone, and I went to check him out, and I found this really amazing song called the Manda Mano Rhythm. So you can check it out on Spotify and other listening platforms. What are we reading? Taking a leaf from the last podcast we did, we are currently reading No Longer at Ease by Chinua Achebe. And this is a book that I think should be in everyone's bookshelf, you know, as an African. And there's, of course, a lot of other African books that I need to come up with a list and add, because there's been a lot of conversation about revolutionary literature. And I think it's also a very important topic. And it's also a good way of spreading the word about what's happening in your world, neocolonialism, how it affects us as Africans, especially modern day Africans, and how we can now start to make changes towards that. So that's all from me. I hope you're going to have an amazing weekend. Check out my website, theafinado.com, for more written content and everything celebrating African art, culture, society, and so on and so forth. So till next time, bye.